As others have said, the author of this measure, the senator from San Francisco, deserves a great deal of credit from all of us, for taking on such a critical issue, for taking on the big stuff and forcing us to ask the big questions. And I also thank the Pro Tem for the manner in which she has comported this open and inclusive discussion for all of us. As set forth in the lengthy findings in this bill, and as all of us know here on the floor today from our own communities, there are compelling reasons why we need to address this deep and urgent crisis. A crisis for people experiencing homelessness, for families struggling to keep a roof over their heads, and for neighborhoods unraveled in the face of desperation. Real people, real impacts on their lives and their hopes and their dreams and their opportunities. But the thesis of my comments today on this floor comes down to this. Getting it right is just as urgent. Getting it right is just as urgent. Too often, all of us are consumed by the immediate issue at hand, and we bind ourselves to the unforgiving law of unintended consequences. Well, I have been doing a great deal of thinking on this issue, particularly relating to affordability. I will limit my comments today to 3 important points. First, the premise of this bill is that mayors and city council members of some of our 482 cities in the state of California are standing in the way of home building at the behest of single-family homeowners. While there may be some merit to this notion in limited circumstances, this sweeping generalization both oversimplifies the problem and unnecessarily demeans people who have done nothing more than make homes for themselves, raise a family, and play by the rules. And now, this measure, and I just talked to the city to confirm this, seeks to impose new rules for neighborhoods in nearly 80% of Los Angeles. We have given mayors and city council members a false choice. On the one hand, we have said, prepare housing elements, set housing goals. And yet, on the other hand, as they work to provide police, fire, and other essential services to residents, they have been cash-starved. The only avenue available in principle is the Bradley-Burns Uniform Sales Tax, which allocates 1 cent from each dollar of sales to cities. The real but unintended consequences was to give cities a reason to say yes to auto malls, yes to big box retail stores, which would add city funding, but say no to housing, the fiscalization of land use, which would increase costs of providing services. That is the simple, biggest reason we are where we are. Second, the governor and all of us in this chamber want to build housing urgently. That is clear. We need to start building this afternoon, if you ask folks that we represent. But this bill will not take effect until January 2021, about a year from now. And the amendments taken just 3 weeks ago delay SB 50's major provisions for more than 2 years to 2023, the start of the governor's second term. That's 3 years of waiting, not really addressing the urgent problems of getting homes built, even before considering delays based upon the very real prospect of litigation. So what happens in the meantime? What happens in the real world? If I'm a developer contemplating a project, this bill regrettably and ironically gives me a huge incentive not to build now, but to sit on my hands for the next 3 years. Why build 2 stories when you can build 5 stories later? And in Los Angeles, you could not pick a worse time to inadvertently pour sand in the gears. With voter approval, Los Angeles has increased incentives for building affordable, I underline affordable housing near transit, to nearly 20,000 units just in the last 2 years. And what are single-family homeowners doing? Contrary to the notion that they are causing the problem, many are adding accessory dwelling units, an idea carried into law by my seatmate from Fremont, my absent seatmate from Fremont. In Los Angeles, since the ADU law was passed, We have had 14,250 applications filed in just 2 years, almost 10,000 permits already issued, and most of them are in the San Fernando Valley. When the community of Pacoima sought a $23 million grant as part of a Green Transformative Communities program for underserved communities under the Strategic Growth Council, you know what they did? Their entire housing plan for clean and green communities was based on ADUs. Not building new stuff, but ADUs, because it's been so wildly successful. Third, in the past, I know the argument has been made here on the floor, but I want to stand in a contrary position. I have stood on this floor and humbly asked my colleagues, many of you, for the courtesy to move a measure that was not fully developed to the other house as a work in progress. A number of us have done so ourselves. But I would suggest that this time we are in different circumstances. As I mentioned, even in the best case circumstances, SB 50 does not become law until January 2021. We are still in the opening days of this year. This bill makes sweeping changes to huge swaths of this state. There is no reason, in my judgment, to punt perhaps the most important issue, as the Pro Tem said, that we face to the other House, denying ourselves an opportunity to collectively do the work and effectively and urgently address the problem. Let's do the homework together. Let's build on the extraordinary homework that the author of this measure has done in all corners of the state of California and better understand the intergenerational challenges that informs much of the framework of his measure. Let's get it right together. Let's craft a solution together that solves the extraordinary housing challenges we face. I conclude where I started. Getting it right is just as urgent. And for those and other reasons, I will not be supporting this measure today, but I pledge to each one of you and to the Pro Tem that I will work as hard as I can on behalf of California to get it right, to work on this big picture package, to figure it out, to put us in a position where as members we can stand proudly before the constituents we represent, that we're not just going to change their zoning and change their detrimental reliance on the laws that have been, and we're going to create a transit-oriented program that will work for California and get building done quickly. Thank you very much, Madam President.